Afternoon everybody. There's no introduction needed, I don't think. Now hopefully you're watching this off the back of the last video, which we were talking about the Isomat ceiling paint. That was probably a bit of a lengthy video. This one won't be as lengthy. Right, I said I'd be back because we wanted to discuss the paint that I'm going to be using on the walls. The paint that I'm going to be using on the walls, ceilings are dry by the way, Premium Color from Isomat. This is a really nice paint. We've used this before. It's a 20,000 scrub test rated hardware in paint. It's touch dry in about an hour, 3 to 4 hours recoat time. You can apply it by brush, roller, sprayer, airless sprayer if you'd so decided to. And another thing about this paint, it's not much smell to it. So odour wise, it's actually quite nice for working in private houses when you've got customers about. So without further ado, I'm just going to get on with this because we don't need to be going over old ground. You know how I can paint a wall. But I will say to you, this paint is it's the Greek paint because Isomat's from Greece. 5 to 10% thinning of paint is optional, but I always find 5% with the Isomat range is about right. And as I said in the last video, I was using the analogy, or not the eulogy, using the analogy of don't judge a book by its first cover, if that's the way of saying it. When you get this paint on, don't go, oh, I'm not liking it, it's not covering. Give it a chance to dry, give it a chance to body up with that drying process, and also give it the second coat before you make the assumptions on it's not right for you. Because we've found over the past few months of using, well, year or so using Isomat, you sometimes think that it's not covered properly, and that's after the first coat, particularly while it's still drying. Come the second coat, after the first coat's properly dried, you'll notice a big difference on how the paint bodies up, i.e. the opacity of the paint. So without further ado, I've got, for cutting in, I'm going to go around one wall at a time. That's the best way of doing it. One wall at a time, so you haven't got any fatty edges drying off. That's a brown wall. I'm wondering whether I might need an extra coat on that. So if it needs an extra coat, I've only got that wall to do. I'm quite happy to give a third coat, no problem with that. I'm going to cut in and I'm going to roll it, but this time I'm still using the rotor golds, but this time instead of using the longer pile, I'm using the medium pile. So I'm using the medium pile on the walls, cutting in with arrow-worthy slash cut 2.5 inch, quite a nice soft bristle for cutting in across that top edge. Don't do taping, just cut in neatly. And the thing is, we're cutting in, if you don't get it right that first time round, come the second time, you can see where you've got to go or where you've been, and you follow it a lot easier on the second coat. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go off camera, I'm going to start painting. You'll see me do a little bit of painting on there. We'll freeze it, we'll come back once it's all coated up. This is the same day that I'd finished the ceilings, so I'm on later afternoon. My idea is to get a coat on all this room before I go home today, come back tomorrow. If that brown wall needs a second stroke third coat first thing in the morning, I will do, and then we'll finish the final coat on the rest of this bluey colour tomorrow. This colour that I'm actually using is a bit of a grey, so it will cover that nicely for two. The brown, we'll see. Cut in and roll one wall at a time. It's all to do with keeping a wet edge going. I've got to say how impressed I am with the opacity of how that's cut in around that brown wall. It's actually not done bad. Fingers crossed, 2 coats will probably be enough for that. I've just moved you around. I've only done that wall. How impressive is that for one coat? And I know it's wet and it's got to have time to dry off and body up, but do you know what? I was expecting I needed 2 on that and then a possible 3rd to get the same sort of opacity stroke coverage to what the rest of the room's going to be like. But the way that's gone on, I think tomorrow when I do the whole room, that will be fine for 2 coats. Fingers crossed, we'll see. We'll see. One thing I want to mention, this is Premium Color. They also do, and it's called, instead of Premium, it's called Professional. The only difference between that and this price, this is a little bit more expensive than the Professional Colour. Professional Colour I think retails about 70-ish pounds for a 10 litre stroke 9 litres of fluid paint in a 10 litre tub. And the other difference is this is a 20 up to 20,000 scrub cycle scrub test rating, whereas the Professional Colour's 15. Not 15 as in 15,000. I don't mean 15 times. So 15,000 compared to this being 20,000. Now if you're using a durable scrubbable hard wearing matte paint now, do you know what scrub test rating that paint is? Because you know what, 20,000 and 15,000 it's got to be fine in a domestic house. That's why Professional Colour, it even says, if you look at the spec sheets, it says schools, high traffic areas, hotels, gymnasiums, sports halls, all of that sort of thing. So I'm actually using Premium in a customer's house, 20,000 scrub test rating. That's a lot of wiping round light switches. But anyway, right, thanks for listening. I'm going to come back tomorrow. I'm going to finish this room now, come back tomorrow and pick up from where we're leaving off. And I won't subject you to 2 coats. I will do the conclusion tomorrow. So you might even see me in some different clothes. So catch you later. Got work to do. Time is money. Another day, another dollar. Said I'd come back to you once I'd got this room second coated. And that's what I've done. I've got it all second coated. And how impressed am I? It's got a lovely finish. Really impressed with how the actual finish. It's not too shiny. It's got a matte finish. But don't forget, this is a 20,000 scrub test rated paint. Another thing I probably haven't mentioned to you, it's actually got adhesion properties, so it actually adheres and sticks to surfaces that you might say, oh, what do I need to do if I'm going over vinyl silk? Well, I'd always say just give it a nib down anyway, like I've gone round with a sander, just nibbing down anything that's on the surface. But this will adhere to any of those sorts of problem surfaces because it's a quality paint. But can you just look over my shoulder? 2 coats. That was the brown wall, and that's 2 coated. And I have to say, I'm hard pushed to be looking at it to say, oh, it's not covered. I don't want to say a blind man on a galloping horse because that's putting it down, but actual coverage of that for 2 coats, well impressed. When I came in this morning and I looked at it, it nearly looked covered for one, other than let me say that properly, you'd known you'd gone over a dark colour, but for the coverage of the opacity of this paint over that dark colour, I was thinking to myself, that's going to cover for another coat. And it did do. So all in all, the quick dryness of this, albeit I had to come back the next day because I did my first coat last thing yesterday afternoon. But it does dry quite quickly. The rollers, the brushes, all washed out nicely. And the finish, I've only thinned it 5%. brilliant, really pleased with it. Probably some videos coming up there now. So my conclusion is, if you've not tried this, the premium colour, and also look at the professional colour Isomat paint, give it a try, because it's one of those paints that you probably go, oh no, I don't want to use that, I don't know anything about it. Give it a go, because it's a really good paint and I've been very impressed with it. And 2 coats in this room's gone on a dream. See you on the next one.